Yeah, please, behind you.
Quickly on Gaza, did you promise leaders this week that you would not allow Israel to annex the West Bank? And is that something that you...
I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. No, I will not allow it.
At the United Nations headquarters in New York, behind closed doors and under the weight of decades of Middle Eastern conflict, President Donald Trump made a promise that stunned Arab and Muslim leaders. He assured them that he would not allow Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to annex the West Bank, a move that many feared could destroy the fragile Abraham Accords and shatter any remaining hope for a two-state solution. For Trump, the moment was both an opportunity and a gamble. It was a chance to show leadership in a region consumed by war, but it also risked alienating one of his closest allies in Netanyahu. Arab leaders, already frustrated by Trump's refusal to recognize a Palestinian state and his unwavering support of Israel's military campaign in Gaza, listened carefully. They knew that if Netanyahu moved to formally annex the West Bank, the Middle East could spiral into even greater instability. But could Trump's assurances really be trusted? And would Netanyahu, embattled at home and facing pressure from his far-right base, listen to America's demand? This is the story of Trump's bold vow, the forces driving Israel toward annexation, and the uncertain future of peace in the Middle East. Chapter 1. The Meeting at the UN. The promise was made during a high-stakes meeting between Trump and leaders from 8 Arab and Muslim countries at the United Nations. Trump told reporters beforehand that it was his most important meeting of the day, but when he left the room afterward, he offered no public comments. Arab leaders were tight-lipped as well. Only Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan gave a brief comment, describing the meeting as fruitful. According to 6 people familiar with the conversation, Trump was firm. Israel would not be allowed to annex the West Bank. The assurance was significant, not only because it came amid Israel's nearly 2-year war against Hamas, but also because Netanyahu has long flirted with annexation to shore up political support at home. For the Arab leaders in the room, Trump's words were not just about policy. They were about trust, credibility, and whether the United States was still willing to play the role of mediator in a deeply fractured region. Chapter 2. The White Paper and the 21-Point Plan. At the meeting, Trump's team presented a white paper outlining what they called the Trump 21-Point Plan for peace in the Middle East. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff later shared some details at the Concordia Summit in New York. According to him, the plan aimed to balance Israeli security concerns with the demands of Arab neighbors. The Annexation Pledge was part of this broader framework, alongside proposals for governance in Gaza and post-war security arrangements. Yet, despite the impressive name, many details remained vague. Witkoff avoided direct mention of the West Bank in his public remarks, fueling speculation about how concrete Trump's assurances really were. For Arab leaders, the plan was a start, but without clear enforcement mechanisms, it remained more aspiration than guarantee. Chapter 3. Netanyahu's Calculations. To understand the stakes, we must look at Netanyahu's political predicament. Facing elections next year, Netanyahu is under pressure from far-right members of his coalition, who view annexation of the West Bank as the ultimate prize. For decades, the Israeli right has dreamed of absorbing the territory, expanding Jewish settlements, and ending the prospect of Palestinian statehood once and for all. Under Netanyahu's leadership, Israel has already tightened its grip on the West Bank through expanded settlements and heightened security. But formal annexation would be a game-changer, triggering massive international backlash. For Netanyahu, the calculation is simple: appease his hardline supporters and risk alienating allies abroad, or hold back and risk losing political power at home. Trump's pledge to Arab leaders puts him in an even tighter corner. Chapter 4. Arab Leaders' Red Line. For Arab leaders, annexation of the West Bank is not negotiable. They see it as a red line that would destroy any chance of a two-state solution and undermine regional stability. During the UN meeting, they pressed Trump to recognize the gravity of the situation. They warned that annexation would collapse the Abraham Accords, unraveling one of the signature achievements of Trump's first term. Arab states like the UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco normalized relations with Israel under the Accords, but their willingness was based on Israel shelving annexation plans. If Netanyahu broke that promise now, Arab governments could face outrage at home and pressure to sever ties with Israel. Trump's vow reassured them in the short term, but deep doubts remained. Chapter 5: The Palestinian Perspective. For Palestinians, Trump's words were a rare glimmer of hope amid devastation. The war in Gaza has claimed more than 64,000 lives, according to international monitors, while the West Bank remains under increasing pressure from settlement expansion. The idea that the U.S. president might block annexation suggested that Washington could still influence events on the ground. Yet Palestinians also remember Trump's past decisions, moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, cutting aid to Palestinian refugees, and refusing to support Palestinian statehood. Trust is fragile. Many worry that the annexation pledge is just another bargaining chip in a larger game, one that may not ultimately prioritize Palestinian rights or sovereignty. Chapter 6: The Ghost of the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords remain Trump's proudest foreign policy achievement. Signed in 2020, they normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states, reshaping the regional order. At the time, annexation of the West Bank was looming, and the UAE used normalization as leverage to push Israel to hold off. For Trump, it was a win-win. Israel expanded its diplomatic reach, Arab states gained favor in Washington, and he could claim to be a peacemaker. But the accords are fragile. Annexation could undo them in an instant, shattering the trust that underpins the agreements. Arab leaders reminded Trump of this during their UN meeting, stressing that their domestic legitimacy rests on defending Palestinian rights. Trump's promise not to allow annexation was as much about saving the accords as it was about peace. Chapter 7: International Reactions. Beyond the Middle East, European officials have also warned against annexation. They see it as a violation of international law and a death blow to the two-state solution. At the UN, European diplomats quietly signaled support for Trump's stance, even if they were skeptical of his commitment. Meanwhile, global attention remains divided, with wars in Ukraine and Gaza consuming headlines. Still, the possibility of West Bank annexation alarms many world leaders who fear it could spark a new wave of violence across the region. For the international community, Trump's vow was welcome, but questions lingered. Would he enforce it, or was it just another rhetorical flourish designed for political theater? Chapter 8: War in Gaza and the Annexation Question. The backdrop to all of this is Israel's ongoing war against Hamas in Gaza. Now entering its second year, the conflict has devastated the enclave, with tens of thousands killed and millions displaced. In recent weeks, Israel has expanded its military operations beyond Gaza, targeting Hamas officials even in Qatar during peace talks. Arab leaders see these moves as reckless, and they worry that annexation of the West Bank could further inflame tensions. For Trump, linking annexation to a broader peace plan allows him to position himself as a broker, someone who can restrain Israel while also pushing Arab states to engage. But with Netanyahu doubling down on military pressure, the gap between words and reality grows wider. Chapter 9: Trump's Balancing Act. Trump's approach to the Middle East has always been a balancing act. On one hand, he has been one of Israel's staunchest allies, offering unwavering support to Netanyahu and moving U.S. policy in Israel's favor. On the other, he craves the image of a deal-maker who can achieve what past presidents could not. The annexation question puts these two roles in direct conflict. By promising Arab leaders that he will block annexation, Trump risks angering Netanyahu and alienating the Israeli right. But by allowing annexation, he risks destroying the Abraham Accords and losing credibility with Arab partners. For Trump, the challenge is to project strength while keeping both sides engaged. A nearly impossible task. Chapter 10. What lies ahead? The future remains uncertain. Netanyahu is scheduled to meet with Trump at the White House, where the annexation issue will be front and center. Arab leaders are watching closely, prepared to react if Trump fails to deliver on his promise. Palestinians remain skeptical, fearing that their fate is being decided in closed rooms without their voice. And the international community waits to see whether the United States can still act as a credible mediator in the world's most intractable conflict. One thing is clear: annexation of the West Bank would not just redraw borders. It would reshape alliances, destabilize the region, and potentially end the dream of a two-state solution forever. Trump's promise may have bought time, but the clock is ticking, and the choices made in the coming months will reverberate for decades. Chapter 11. The domino effect of annexation. The fear expressed by Arab and Muslim leaders is not confined to the West Bank itself. Annexation, they argue, would trigger a domino effect across the region. Jordan, which maintains a fragile peace treaty with Israel, could face public outrage and pressure to suspend cooperation. Egypt, another cornerstone of Middle East diplomacy, might be forced to reconsider its ties. Even Gulf nations that signed the Abraham Accords could see domestic backlash severe enough to jeopardize normalization. Beyond the Middle East, annexation could drive a wedge between the United States and Europe, as EU leaders have made clear they would not accept unilateral changes to internationally recognized borders. In Washington, Congress could become a battleground, with lawmakers pushing for sanctions or restrictions on military aid. What begins as a political move in Jerusalem could spiral into a global crisis, something Trump seems keenly aware of as he balances his support for Netanyahu with his desire to maintain America's influence abroad. For Arab leaders, Trump's promise wasn't just about stopping annexation. It was about preventing a cascade of instability that could engulf the region and weaken U.S. alliances worldwide. President Donald Trump's pledge to block Israeli annexation of the West Bank is one of the boldest assurances he has given Arab and Muslim leaders. Yet it is also one of the most precarious. The promise comes at a time when trust is fragile, war rages in Gaza, and political pressure on Netanyahu is mounting. For Arab leaders, it was a welcome signal, but one that must be tested in practice. For Palestinians, it was a faint glimmer of hope amid despair. And for the world, it was a reminder that the future of peace in the Middle East often hinges on promises made behind closed doors. Whether Trump's vow will be remembered as a turning point or an empty gesture will depend on what happens next. But one thing is certain: the stakes could not be higher.